over in the Red Direct Garage. My middle son I sold the YJ to, and he's been driving for a while, and he came up to me the other day and said, hey, it's making a noise. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at it and see if the motor's about to blow up, if it's got any oil in it, what the heck's going on. Do your preliminary check to make sure that it's not something super simple. Raise the hood, boy. Yeah, he's in his work attire today. All right, start it up. Make sure the parking brake's on. I don't want to die.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. All right, with all my diagnostic skills, the first thing I would say is that ain't good. Doesn't sound like it's the motor. It's not a knocking or a ticking or something that sounds internal. It sounds like something external. And the best way to find out what's making that noise is to take the belt off, right? Because if you take it off, you start it up, it's not making that noise, then you know it's an external component. Could be an idler bearing, it could be a water pump, it could be anything that belt has tension on, and sometimes you can't even tell till you take the belt off what's actually loose. I've seen water pumps super loose and just flopping all around, but when that belt tension was on it wasn't making any noise. Now it's not leaking any antifreeze, so the weep hole isn't draining on the water pump. So we're going to go ahead and loosen the belt, take it off, start it up, and then we'll start looking at each individual component to see if we can figure out what's making that rattling, grinding, weird noise. Here's the tensioner bolt on a YJ right here. We're going to loosen that up, loosen up a couple bolts here, and that will allow a power steering pump to come in enough to get the belt off, but that's how you loosen it up. It's actually a pretty good system. Alright, it's got a little bit of a ticking. It's got, you know, an engine with, I don't know how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles on it, but it isn't that squealing sound. Sounds like it might have a slight exhaust leak, maybe an exhaust manifold, but none of that is the noise that we heard before, that's grinding, squeaking crank. So we're going to look at each component to see if we can figure out if one of them is making noise or not on the belt drive. Obviously it's going to be something that the belt drives. And that's your air compressor. That feels okay. Uh-oh. Hear that? Alternator. And you got this bearing going up too. Add those together and that's bad. But definitely the alternator's toast. You can hear it clacking. The alternator on these isn't too bad. Got a bolt at the top, bolt at the bottom. I can't remember if there's another one in the back, but I don't believe so. First thing you want to do though is unhook your battery, because if you short out that wire when you're trying to take it off, not a good idea. So we'll take off the positive wire here off of the battery. Those marine terminals still are holding up like a champ that we put on. There's a video on the marine terminals. I'll put a link to that. These things have been rock stars. You got your top bolt here, this 15mm, and there's a nut on the back. So you want to hold it with a wrench, otherwise it'll just spin around and around and around. And then we got the same thing on the bottom. Now that those two bolts are out, it's loose. We got to take off this bolt. I think it's a 10mm. On the YJs, it has kind of a weird harness here. You got 4 bolts, 1, 2. Those are the bigger 12mm, and 2 7mm, I think, right here that go on these posts. On the TJs and later, it's just a plug that plugs in and one wire here. That is bad. That's a catastrophic failure. Failure! Alright, I looked. I don't have that alternator. I have one actually for my TJ. The later model TJs have a different alternator than the YJs. Removal is about the same, except like I said, there's one plug instead of that little harness that plugs in. We're going to go look at pricing a new alternator, and I'm also going to look at that idler bearing. So if you take off one of your idler bearings and you felt like it's making noise, put your finger in it, run it around. If it feels rough at all, like it feels like it's grabby or it makes a little bit of a noise, that means that bearing itself has started to fail, and you might as well just go ahead and get another one and replace it, because you don't want to have to take all this stuff off again to put one of these stupid things on. Okay, so I checked all the places in town, O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts. All the auto parts store were pretty much close in the $120, $140 range. Checked eBay. There was some that were like $70, but I would probably have to wait a week, or I can order it Amazon Prime, and it ended up being, with tax and all, $94. I'll put a link down below for the alternator we used on the YJ. It was actually a pretty good deal. We'll see. It'll be coming in, and the idler bearing is available locally. Probably get that at O'Reilly. So we're just going to wait for the parts to come in, and then we'll slap this thing back together. All right. Long day at work, working on Jeeps, doing all kinds of stuff. I'm out here with Jennifer. Say hi.
Hi.
New front porch, new columns. Still got a little bit of trim work to do, but she's going to tell you what she thinks of the remodel. What'd you think of the remodel?
It's awesome.
Yeah, she loves it. I'm like a poor Chip Gaines, and she thinks she's Joanna, so. Yeah, she wants more shiplap out here. And I'm going to enjoy my beer. We're going to wait for this alternator to come in, and we're going to put that thing back together. Now it does have some noise in the bottom end, some ticking and knocking a little bit. Got a little concerned. And I asked my son if it had ever run low on oil, and he says, yeah, a couple times. So say that's probably what did that. The 2.5 and the 4.0 are pretty healthy animals. You can abuse the crap out of them, but if you run them without oil, it's not good. It's got kind of it almost sounds like a main bearing sound. How long that'll go, I had no idea, but we're going to put an alternator on this pig and see what happens. Well, another day. It looks like rain. I got to put the alternator on this. I'm waiting for my son. It's probably, what, 12:30? And that's pretty early for him to get up to work on his own car that doesn't drive. Here's the storage building I need to get working on, but I don't want to start taking it apart if it's going to pour down rain and get everything wet. So that's been a pain in my butt. This is a Schumacher light that I purchased. This is the second one. I had another one, and I lost the charger to it, and then I lost the whole dang light. But these things are freaking awesome. You've got a magnet, you can put them anywhere. They swivel. I love these things. I'll put a link down below, but if you're looking for a great work light, this is it. This is the thing. And Schumacher's famous for doing all the battery chargers and stuff, but this light is rock star. So I'm taking all these nuts off. It comes with the new nuts, and then we'll hook up the harness to it, making sure that the battery's still disconnected, and throw her on. Just kind of set it in there where you can get your bolts started, because this is kind of a pain to get this harness back on. Got the 4 bolts. That one's kind of underneath the wire, so you got to kind of move the wire just a little bit and get it started. And then we got these other 2 small ones right here. When you're putting it back together, make sure you look for any burnt, frayed, torn wires, anything like that. The wiring looks like it's in good shape, so we should be fine with that. Okay, you got your top bolt, which has a nut on the back, and then the bottom one. They're both 15 millimeters, and you just tighten those up really good and snug. And the alternator's installed. Now we got to just put the belt back on. Usually, you'll have a diagram on the top of it here that shows you which way the belts go. Here's a moment of truth. You can tell from our electric gauge that it's charging well. Getting that battery charged back up, so that's awesome. Well, the Jeep is fixed, and that's awesome. The bearing in the back of the alternator had gone out, and it was making all kinds of squealing noises. It's just a matter of time before that thing just came apart. The idler bearing was starting to get rattly, and that was about a $15 part, so that was good. Back on the road, charging great. That's super. On a personal note, what I would say is that I was very saddened. I was saddened that my son doesn't know anything about cars. After everything that I've done, all he had to do was show a little bit of interest, and he would know how to do something. But at this point, I promise he couldn't even find the tools to do it. So that makes me sad, because they don't have that desire. I think that's kind of the mentality of a lot of these young people, is someone else can do it or whatever. And you know, I just never grew up that way. And if you're watching this video and you're watching on how to put on an alternator, you're thinking about doing it yourself, you don't have that mentality either. It's just really kind of sad. One day I'm going to be dead, and he's going to be paying somebody $400 to do what I did in the driveway. I'm going to finish my Michelob Ultra, which is basically water-colored yellow with very little taste, and I don't think any alcohol. But because of my diet, I've lost 10 pounds. I'm going to try to keep losing a little bit, because I'd like to stick around a little bit, make some more videos. I'm David from the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.